awesome from basically, sorry, it just notified me of something, but anyway, so we had some really great collaboration from people like Colonel Candid Frost, shameless plug for her website right now, Colonel Candid. So she's really passionate about coaching and mentorship. We had kind of some collaboration from 434th Field Artillery Brigade. They did a Diversify Your Mentorship panel for us. Major General Russell, the 1st TSC CG, did a really amazing video just talking through biases and how leaders have unconscious and conscious biases that basically shape your organization, whether you mean it to or not. And so how through a leader's biases, they can ultimately create either a fair and equitable workplace, or they can kind of tear apart their unit cohesion and the effectiveness of their team. So that's a part of this book. It was kind of like a building block in my eyes of something we had to talk about. And then the other part of it was coaching and mentorship. So I got the opportunity to talk to Dr. Brad Johnson and Dr. David Smith, who are both kind of experts in the field of mentorship and women in the workplace. They kind of wrote books such as Athena Rising and Good Guys, which are awesome books. Again, shameless plug for their books. But basically something that the research shows is that women are less likely to be mentored than men in the workplace. And I don't think the Army is, immune to that, unfortunately. So it was important as a part of this book to talk through coaching and mentorship. I would argue that section is pretty gender neutral. Good leadership is good leadership is good leadership. But that was another building block that was really important and crucial to kind of starting this book. So those were kind of some of the things I worked on. We had a bunch of really awesome people working on this project. And if you want, ma'am, I can kind of highlight like what some of the other sections are. So they had like a section, I know they're going to talk about it later. There's a section on kind of nutrition, postpartum, P3T. And then we had, a section on kind of field hygiene and grooming standards. So really just kind of looking at policies that affect women. There is the section, talking about like family care plans, even though that's not specifically just women focused, like General Donahue mentioned. It is something that definitely impacts mothers in our formation. So so that's kind of like an overview of the book. It's been really awesome to be a part of it. So
awesome.
Penny,
Thanks, Taylor.
Yep.
Thanks. I'm gonna turn it over to Stormy Scott because she's gonna talk a little bit about some of the highlights that we hit on there from a policy change perspective.
So good afternoon. First, I want to say to Colonel PB, thank you again to you and your team for putting this together and allowing us to come and really talk about this on this platform. And good to be back with the team with General Donahue and Captain Gugel. And I would just like to echo them. I'll tell you, when the boss first came on and she was like, hey, we need to come up with a leader education playbook so we can push it out to the field. And, being a single parent coming through the military, I was super excited about this because I was like, we have come a long way in the Army when it comes to how we do policies, when it comes to PT, when it comes to deployments after you have a baby. And so what I would tell you, like one of the biggest highlights with this was when that directive came out for the postpartum pregnancy came out, and it changed a lot of the standards from when a soldier has a baby, they no longer have to be height and weight 6 months. It pushes it out to 12 months. And then it also defers deployments out to 365 days. And then it also allows them to attend PME, during their postpartum phases. And so to me, I thought that this was really a big deal because now the Army has looked at not just motherhood, but taken it to a parenthood, because this directive not only just impacted females, it also impacted, the spouse as well. So it was inclusive to that. And I thought that was so impactful and so powerful for where we're driving the Army to today. day. And so when we put this playbook together, I will tell you, it was a lot of hard work from all of the participants from ALU to include the digital training team. Dave Garrison and his team spent a lot of hours trying to make sure that we could get our message right. So when we came together and put the information on, that whoever was receiving it, whether you were the soldier, whether you were the leader, it's easy accessible. You can click through the material, you can understand it. It gave scenario basis, it gave real live examples of people who are in these situations. And then, you know, the grooming standards, it was actual pictures that was included into this. So it's all inclusive and it's very educational. And like General Donahue mentioned, I think it'll be a very powerful tool in these PMEs, because when you go through the basics of, you know, your phase one, that's when you can start talking about different Army things like topics versus, you know, before going into the technical. And then even in your PCCs before you go into pre-command courses, especially as a young captain, young first sergeant, you know, we think that we know everything, but I will argue that there is something in this playbook that somebody's going to say, oh, I didn't know that at some point. And, you know, I would just say, I look at that directive and I say to myself, you know, they have a postpartum pregnancy PT program now, and it's been in existence for a while now. But I think back when I had my son back in a long time ago. So he's 17 now. So thankful that, you know, a lot of these hurdles, you know, the Army has now, I look back and I say, dang, I wish we could have had these policies in place back then. And I just remember, you know, going to a regular PT formation in the morning, and, you know, it was profile PT fall out, right? If you was pregnant, you was roped up to just a general population of profile PT, and then you just kind of had to figure it out. And then coming back after having the baby and having to, you know, be compliant within 6 months, and now looking at where we are today, and, you know, they're having 12 months. And I just think that that is so great, because it's building readiness for one, because we're able to retain families and we're able to retain soldiers who really want to make a career out of the Army as well as start a family. And so I just think, you know, all the senior leaders who endorse this playbook, we just can't thank them enough, because when senior leaders endorse it, from the mentorship all the way down to just basic field hygiene, that's an investment in soldier readiness. And so I was just thankful to be a part of this entire team. And it was just not, and I will be honest with you to tell you that I didn't do the hard work. The hard work came from the acknowledgement of all of the ALU who put the time in, even personal time, to reach out to soldiers in the formation to say, hey, tell me your story, because we can include this as an example inside of the playbook. So I look forward to the discussion, ma'am. Very, very, definitely looking forward to when this actually rolls out, to be an actual product for the Army, for leaders and soldiers to actually be able to use. So with that, ma'am, I'll turn it over to Ms. Cheryl to talk her portion from a medical standpoint.
Hi, good evening. So Major Cheryl Blito. So I'm a dietitian by trade, so I'm very clear with my scope. So I can answer specific questions, anything nutrition. Some of the medical stuff I can probably take the big picture answer on, but definitely we'll have to get in touch with SMEs, which I have a lot of here to reach out to. So yeah, so very great to be involved, and kudos to General Donahue. So nutrition, I feel dietitians, we still have a Sisyphean effort with just nutrition misinformation out there. So when leaders recognize we want nutrition at the table, at least to share their piece, we're blessed and we're excited, and we know we need to get it right. So really the nutrition chapter, it's the same thing as Sergeant Major said, it's hitting at that nutritional readiness with the big H2F, hopefully everyone knows about FM 7-22. So we really took it at a standpoint that it has a lot of crossover. It's just good, solid information, but it's also stating the obvious that there are some differences, right? And we need to highlight those so leaders are aware that there's probably something different when you're breastfeeding or when you're going out to the field in your early pregnancy. But there's also random questions that we tried to hit. Same thing when I was scoping, a lot of them I got from the Army mom life, right? Can I eat MREs when I'm in my first trimester and I'm out in the field? You know, it was a legit question. And so it's, if they're having it, then a lot of leaders are probably having it, right? So the nutrition, we try to hit at those key things, but also recognizing nutrition is highly individualized. So sometimes it's hard to put out these broad messages to hit everybody, but could we hit the key ones to give you enough direction and then know how to seek out more resources from there? So hopefully it's hit the picture. And then we also included kind of like a summary guide for those leaders that are busy. It's a downloadable PDF, has the key things and the links, because we get how it is. It's just nutrition. It's important, right? But so is everything else. But we want to make sure we kind of have that little place at the table. So I've appreciated the involvement, and hopefully it meets the intent and helps soldiers to improve their nutritional readiness. So thank you. Over to you, ma'am.
Awesome. Well, so with the mini ma'ams on here, I'm gonna jump back in. So ladies, thank you so much for bringing that up and introducing the virtual playbook. And what resonates with us is that the Army and the leaders have taken the opportunity to put brains together and the many thoughts together to come up with something that others can benefit from. One of the main reasons we created the FMMP, or the Female Mentor Morale Program, is to have leaders and juniors and subordinates come in and talk together so that they can find out. I, as a leader, and I put it in one of the emails, as a leader, I can't help you if I don't know what the problem is. And so I know all of you as a team and the rest of the people that were putting the playbook together had to go back and ask so many questions and dig deep and research what people would want to see, because once it's out there in virtual land, it's out there. So we appreciate you all letting us be a part of helping you by letting us review it for you, and then also allowing us to have a piece in it, because for those that don't know, there's an FMMP portion in there where we also have starter kits. And so I'm very happy sometimes to look at the low numbers that we have sometimes on our sessions, because I know we started 25 chapters from our very first session as an FMMP. So we have a Fort Belvoir, we have a Fort Jackson, Fort Bliss chapter. So everything that we do, we want to pass on to them as well. So with us having this evening, we'll pass this on to our sister chapters, FMMP chapters at other locations. But I'm so glad that we have the opportunity to ask you all these questions. And so I'm going to turn it over to CJ, Captain Promotable Estelle, but CJ, who's going to facilitate the question and answer period. And oh, by the way, I have the first question, but go ahead. I'm going to let you recognize me. So CJ, come on in.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So thank you so much, General Donahue, Command Sergeant Major Scott. Truly appreciate your leadership throughout while I was there at AOU. But I have some significant questions that I'd like to ask. I think they're important and prudent to what we were talking about here. But ma'am, General Donahue, what were the challenges when you decided that you wanted to avail yourself to the force and say, how can I help and what else?
Yeah, so CJ, by the way, it was so great to see you at AUSA as well.
Yes,
so
ma'am.
it's always awesome when you can run into like teammates in the most random places, right? And so the only piece I was sad about is that she has gone into the dark side and gone into the acquisition world, but that's okay.
I know,
but that's all right. That I know. So anyway, we lost a great logistician, but she's still a logistician impacting the acquisition field. So it's great. So look, I mean, I always say you're a victim of your experiences, right? So when I was a young lieutenant, I had a really unfortunate experience where, as a young platoon leader, I had a young specialist who the real short part of the story is her son died. Her son died. He was about 9 months old. Ultimately, he had probably died of SIDS. I mean, she was never charged, and so there was no criminal intent there. But what I realized then was that I had become numb to, one, the mother-in-law of this family didn't trust her son, who had been discharged from the Army back at their previous station. And so here you have a female specialist with a male, obviously a husband who was essentially probably not really ready to take care of a 9-month-old and a 2.5-year-old. And so suddenly all the congressional started coming in. And so to me, I looked at it, it was more of a burden on me that I had to answer these congressionals, as opposed to turning around and saying to myself, there's a problem with this family, and I need to do something about that as a young lieutenant. And so, here we are, fast forward to my about 5 months into just a suite of congressionals every single month that I had to answer. And on my day of being promoted to first lieutenant, I get a phone call about 2 o'clock in the morning that said, "Hey, you need to come up to Würzburg Hospital." I was in Germany, and specialist, her name, son has died, and I was, obviously shocked. One, because had I ever been to the house? No. Did I understand the challenges that she was having with the medical community at the time? We always talk about barriers and barriers to care, right? And they're there for younger soldiers. So I went up there. But what was most starking, obviously the grief. How do you deal with that, right? That's just an incredible amount of grief to lose a child. But I think what's most, in my mind was I had a battalion commander at the time and actually a company commander at the time, who called me and said, "Where are you? You should be here at your promotion ceremony." "Sir, I'm sorry, but I'm with my soldier who's just lost. I feel partly responsible for not having helped this soldier. And so thank you very much, sir. I don't really care about my promotion ceremony right now." And he said, "I'm sorry, Lieutenant, what part of don't you get, please report to the battalion commanders, to the, battalion, you're going to all be promoted. All the lieutenants are being, promoted at once." And so that stuck with me, right? That stuck with me. One, how could I have a leadership that didn't even care that I had just lost, right? I didn't just lose, but my soldier just lost her child, but yet somehow my promotion ceremony was more important than this young child, right? The point is that I always use this as an example of one, you have to get to know your soldiers, right? I was so jaded by this, by these congressionals. It's almost like a pain for me to have to answer, as opposed to turning around and saying to the young soldier, "Hey, how can I help?" Right? He had asthma, he had issues, right? Did she really understand what it meant to be a parent, right? And so all those other things out there, that I just think that, part of getting to know your soldier is really the crux of then what I tried to carry almost every single time that I had a chance to lead soldiers. I had this incredible opportunity to serve with General Dempsey when he was the chief of staff of the Army, and then when he was chairman. And he had this incredible definition for trust, which then I took forward with me, right? And I borrowed and have used it ever since. And so that definition of trust that he uses is intimacy times connection divided by risk. And so the more you know your soldiers, the more you establish a bond with them, the more risk you can take as a commander, right? Because it's the equation, right? So more trust, less risk, greater connection. And so again, this is the whole Simon Sinek piece. And Simon Sinek's got an incredible video about people and about taking care of those in your charge. And every opportunity I have to, for an LPD, I show it, and people are like, "Oh my God." But that's what it took me. It took me years to really truly understand that this is all about the people. And Sergeant Major Scott can even tell you is, even when I would get legal actions, right? Even as a 1-star sitting at the quartermaster school, I would always go back and say, okay, what did we not know? What did leaders at Echelon not know about this soldier that puts the onus back on us? Right, that we have somehow failed this soldier because we didn't know, we didn't ask those hard questions, we didn't get to know them, we never developed that intimacy times connection piece. And it's not, from an intimacy perspective, it's about not making it transactional. It's about really getting to know the people that you work with. And so CJ, that's really right. That's really why we did this. This is that's what I've tried to carry through my career. I try to be vulnerable, right? Because I think the more that you can be vulnerable, then more people then open up to you. And at the end of the day, I always have obviously Coach K, I'm a big fan of, and he always says next play. And so next play, fail better, at the end of the day, how do you build that safe environment where then you can get to know people and people trust you? So hopefully that answers it.
Definitely answers it. Thank you, ma'am. And sorry to hear that story, but I think it's instances like that that create us as leaders because it gives you that foundation. You know, how would I act? And again, like Coach K would say, so what's the next play for the next time this happens?
Right.
So thank you, ma'am. I appreciate that. We have a question in the chat, and it's from Fort Hunter Liggett. Does the Leader Playbook address our Army civilian employees and their challenges? Command Sergeant Major Scott, you want to take that?
Yes, ma'am. And so with the playbook, it does not address like postpartum, like your pregnancy things and when they can take off, because they're governed by a set of rules. But what I will say that the playbook can be of value to our civilian counterparts, the mentorship piece of it, because I think kind of goes back to what Captain G says, mentorship is mentorship. Good leadership is good leadership. So if we build a foundation of great leadership within our organizations, I think that is a tool that either a supervisor can even go in and say, okay, how do I build that connection with my employee? How do I get to know my employee? Because we work alongside civilians now, and they're governed by their IDPs, and they also do evaluations. That's kind of like our evaluations on the in the enlisted side or the officer side. So I think when you look at this and say, hey, how can I take this playbook and how can I incorporate it even into a professional development? Because everyone needs professional development, whether it's, either you're taking a class online or you using this playbook to like drive those conversations and find out, hey, what are some of the systemic problems that exist in our organization and how can we address them and how can we bridge that gap to kind of set conditions to get after, building a cohesive team. And I think that that's some of, and there's other things in it, like the personal hygiene piece of it. Would it really apply to the civilians? Civilians can kind of wear when it comes to wearing an appearance of the uniform. So I would say, if there was one thing in the book that they could really go in and use, it would definitely be the mentorship piece of it, because there's a lot of great information and a lot of great sessions between senior leaders that's incorporated in that. And hopefully that answered your question, ma'am. And I'll defer to Captain Gugel as well to add more to that.
Captain G, you got anything? Are you on mute?
Oh, there's this thing called a mute button.
There it is.
So yeah, Sergeant Major hit the nail right on the head. Ultimately, the mentorship piece and the creating an inclusive environment piece, that applies to, Army civilians. It applies, not only to the Army in general, but to any workforce. So those sections can be helpful to anybody. Something we also made sure we did with each chapter is we kind of had a LPD takeaway portion to it, because most of the transformation and change that we need to have in this department is going to happen at the company level. It's going to happen in squads. It's going to happen in platoons. So we made sure there's kind of some LPD questions that are kind of, they can be challenging questions because they're going to ask people to kind of, do some self-reflection, look at their organizations and where they may have some shortcomings, and kind of how to drive forward and hopefully, take what they learn and kind of apply it. So I think that's something they can absolutely take away.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that information. So Colonel PB, I see you have your hand up, ma'am.
Well, yes, I do. So having reviewed the playbook and been a part of, providing some of my own thoughts, and the team, the whole FMMP providing their thoughts as the executive board, I did want to ask, and I think it's very important for the leaders and the members that are here to ask the question: can we take this playbook as leaders and then provide it to our juniors, our subordinates, our civilians? And just like you were talking about how it's good for civilians too, maybe not the postpartum, maybe not the uniform and the regulation piece of it, but absolutely for the mentorship aspect. But taking it down to our junior soldiers and having them look at the playbook with us as leaders, helping them understand why the leader needs to understand the playbook, because it's going to benefit the junior. Did you get any junior enlisted or junior officers to provide feedback on what they saw, or was it more leader centric and asking how as leaders we can learn from it? Over. And any of you can address that. Ma'am, I'll go with you first.
Or I'll
General
say, Sergeant
Donahue,
Major, do you
or
want to take
Sergeant
that? But yes, I mean, I think
Okay.
the answer is yes. I'll let Sergeant Major take it because,
Yeah.
I mean, that's why, one, we wanted a non-commissioned officer, right? And we used junior captains and senior captains, and, you know, I mean, we used sort of the gamut of folks to take a look at this. And so, Sergeant Major, over to you on that one.
Thank you, ma'am. And yes, ma'am, to answer your question, that's a great question. And yes, we did, because even the people who developed it at ALU were staff sergeants. They were young first lieutenants, captains that was in there. And they reached out to the field and they asked those junior soldiers like, hey, what are you experiencing that you would want to know the answer to? So when you go through that, and let's just pick family care plan, that section for an example. So when you look at a family care plan, it's not just it's equally as important for a leader to understand why it's important for a soldier to have a family care plan, what's the specifics and the guidelines to having one, as the junior soldier understanding, well, what's my requirement, or what's my obligation to doing this family care plan and how it pertains to me. So there's absolute benefits that's going to come out of this for even a Sergeant E5 who has leader training down at the squad level. It's kind of supports the SMA. This is my squad. So it's that leader's playbook has so much that a junior Sergeant E5 can take down to the lowest level and just pick a topic. You can pick a topic per week and discuss it, and you would educate your formation so much more than saying, hey, well, just go pull it up, or, you know, we're only going to talk about it when it applies to you. And I think that's where we fail as leaders and soldiers. We only go dig out stuff out of a regulation when it pertains to us or when we need to know. And I think the value that this handbook will bring is it's there for you. You don't have to go to like this multiple regulations to get it, because we put it all in one place with you with hyperlinks for it to take you to that regulation if you want to go look and dig into it even more. So I think, once this is incorporated, it should be, down to the lowest level. Soldiers coming in should know, hey, there's a leader handbook. There's a playbook that tells me like if I'm ever in a leadership position. So I don't have to wait to be an E5 to learn like why is it important to have a family care plan. So I think it's absolute going to be a force multiplier for our formation if it's applied in the formation. And that's what we need leaders to understand. Like when it's rolled out, we need you guys to roll out the red carpet for it, like introduce it, message it, help us message it. So, when soldiers ask about it, they know where to go get it, and they know how to use that in a professional development in their plan and put it in their plan in action. Over.
Hey, really quick on this one. So kudos. So by the way, we had an incredible, and I know Sergeant Major Scott mentioned this, but Dave Garrison and Jeff Peters and Kelly Schweitzer over in, that work in our CASCOM created this, right, entire section. It's like a training technology division. And so if you have never been on their website to see up all of the products that are out there, you want to talk about, bringing rope use to life, right? Like, there's just so many things out there, armors, toolkits, and CSDP stuff. And they are just an incredible organization, but they brought, and specifically this family care plan chapter, they brought that to life. And just the amazing things that they did from a technology perspective were awesome. And even from the nutrition side of the house too. There were just some incredible graphics, some incredible things that really, that it is user friendly. It is, and it's soldier friendly. And so we're hopeful that this can be used. We're going to put it on Army Mom Life, all right? And we're going to empower every one of those soldiers out there to say, use this guide and go show your leader on your phone, right? On your phone. Right now it's CAC protected, but we're going to get that in front of the CAC. And so you won't have those others, but we wanted to keep it protected for right now until we, get the whole entire OCTA screening that's done for it. But I'm telling you, I can't, just the joy when I saw it today. It is hours of work by dozens of people. And it's really going to benefit our Army. And I'm really excited about it.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Sergeant Major. That was awesome. Go ahead, CJ.
Yes, ma'am. So Colonel Johnson, I see your hand, ma'am. I'm going to address the two questions in the chat, and then we'll push over to you, ma'am, if that's okay. So the questions are, panelists, where and when can we find this virtual playbook?
So I just got a new link for it today. I sent it out to a couple of folks to include General Gervais, General Potter, and some other folks that are up in HQDA. The good news, by the way, for this is that if you look back in the Parenthood directive that came out back in April timeframe, there's actually a tasking to Headquarters Department of the Army, to our Manpower and Reserve Affairs to create a digital smart book. And so I'm actually hopeful that this might actually take the place of that. But even if in the event that it doesn't, you will see it very soon. We just now have to synchronize the rollout plan for it with the TRADOC leadership out there, and get their one final blessing that all the corrections that they asked us to make are all complete, and then we're going to get it out. So here next couple weeks, that is my promise to you, and I'm just really excited to for you all to see just again the tremendous amount of work that went into this, and just how beneficial that it's going to be.
That's awesome, ma'am. Is there some type of, I guess, mechanism where you wanted to define success with the overall virtual playbook? I know, like for me, when I was a young company commander, I would use a tool such as this to bring not only my lieutenants, but my corporals and above. And we'd have LPDs on the chapters, ensuring they dispel myths that's within the regulations, like Command Sergeant Major Scott said, that we haven't even read because it's not applicable. But how would you define success with the overall virtual playbook?
Well, I'm hoping when I go onto Army Mom Life with the 10,000 members that are on there and grows every single day, that I don't see posts that are out there literally every single day about my leader made me come in on postpartum leave, like, right? Or my leader, has disapproved my days beyond 42 days, right? I mean, there was comments even yesterday about, my leadership won't approve, this male soldier's primary care, caregiver leave, right? I mean, when you start seeing that narrative out there, I think is where we're going to see success, right? When you see that we've built inclusive teams, when you see that it's about retention, it's about empowering, both all parents, right? To understand that they can serve, and they can continue serving, and they can make this a profession. I think that's the success that we're going to see and they take it. I mean, look, there are people out here that are committed to this. This really was truly one. This is a ground up, sort of a bottom up effort. But even look at that Army directive. And, here in the next couple of months, we're going to see the establishment of an Army WIT team out there, a women's initiative team. TRADOC also sort of has a parallel effort out there that they're trying to tackle different challenges. And so I think you're going to get, the momentum is there to continue to ensure that the Army is an incredible place to work, which we all know it is, right? But how can I help, and what else, right? Like, how do you continue to, make it so it is, in some cases, it can be 1v1 solution sets, right? Like, I mean, and I think that's what makes leaders really, really, want to take care of soldiers, right? Is they understand that you can empower just the one, because guess what? The one then becomes 10, and then becomes 20, and becomes 30. And so you continue to, spread that powerful message.
Awesome, ma'am. Thank you so much. So with that being said, Colonel, was it Johnson? Let me go back, ma'am.
Stephanie Johnson.
Yes, it was me. I'm sorry.
There you go.
Just a couple of questions. I think it's awesome to see a playbook and something that gives general guidance to the field that codifies everything in one place. For future updates, how do you foresee getting feedback on how to continue to update something like this so it becomes a long-term project or long-term product? And then separately, do you foresee that something like this could be measured within recruiting commands as far as success? Like, as we look at the recruitment numbers that we all know have gone down for all of the services, really using a tool like this to say, are we instilling trust in the public enough that our recruitment has gone up as a result of tools such as this? Because I think that's a complex problem, but it's very exciting to have more tools that will help potentially increase that metric.
Yeah, I'll jump on that really quick and then turn it over if maybe Major Scott wants to. So one, what you will see is it is an enduring link. And so we will continue to update. So as new policies are published, There's actually a section in there from MNRA about sort of like, it's like a FAQ, frequently asked questions to the Parenthood Directive that came out in April. And there are some things that still have to continue, right? Like the NDA put out, 12 months of continuous leave posts, for soldiers who have given birth, right? That is not quite yet. The Army has not quite adopted that, but yet there's references to that inside of the Parenthood Directive. So there are absolutely things that will continue. We see more awesome tools about mentorship. We see more recordings of events out there. The FMAP has a section out there on their own Zoom sessions out there, and so those will be continually updated. I mean, so we see this as a living document that will be posted out there, and every time you go to it, you're going to get the new edition. And so you might not even notice that new edition, but it might be just a subtle tweak that we put out there. And so yes, the answer is this isn't just going to be a stale document and we'll come back at once a year. It will be living, breathing, and I think General Gervais has told me I'm sort of on the hook to continue to make sure that this is living and breathing, right? So I'll make sure that everybody else out here continues to stay on the hook too. So that's the one. And then on the recruiting side of the house, I actually think more so probably for the retention side is where I think really where we're going to see a difference, right? I mean, the number of soldiers that choose not to get out on a Chapter 8, for example, right? The number of dual military couples that are out there that stay dual military and decide that, hey, we can do this. This is okay. I think that's the piece of it. And then, as you said, maybe it's the trust in the American people, right? That we are a better place to work than other companies out there because we care about people, we care about parents, we care about parenthood, and making sure that that the focus is on family and self and team. So yes, I think it's yes to all above. And then I'll turn over to anybody else who wants to pipe in. Sorry, Major.
Yes, absolutely, ma'am. You hit the nail on the head. And so, ma'am, Lieutenant Colonel Johnson, that was an awesome question. And I totally concur with General Donahue that I think we'll see more of it on the retention side of the house. And so kind of goes back to what Captain CJ asked earlier on, like, how do we measure success, with this playbook? And I think we measure it because you look at when you talk about, the Chief of Staff of the Army, the SMA, and we talk about corrosive behaviors, right? And then like unfair treatment that goes on in organizations that cause people, to have complaints against them, or they get out of the Army, or it just leads to, something that's negative, that negatively impacts soldiers or families in the military. So I think that, getting the bottom up refinement when this is rolled out from units and organizations to tell us like, hey, how many of your soldiers haven't been chaptered out lately? Because to me, that's what measures success. When I can at the end of the day say, hey, we've chaptered less soldiers out of the Army, since we've, rolled this out. And then, soldiers are also allowed at all levels, to progress in the military. I think those are the measurements. It's like, people are still progressing. They're still being able to go attend PME. They're still able to compete with their peers. And I think a lot of times, as senior leaders, especially, I've had some female mentorship sessions since I've been here on Fort Lee. And the biggest question that comes up to me is like, how do I be a soldier and be a parent too as well? Because a lot of people decide to put parenthood on hold and then they focus on their career until, they get to the end of it. And it's like, hey, I'm almost there. So now I'm gonna have a child, get out the Army, and then do my, the parent thing. So I think when you start to see more people opt to have families in the military, and like General Donahue say, stay in as dual military, like one doesn't have to get out, we both can do this, because there are directives, policies, and senior leaders understand the value of everybody is competing for talent, right? And so how do we retain that talent in the Army if we're not aligning our policies with, the industry that's allowing people to take months off at a time and still come back to a job? So I think, this will move us, I think if you read in the directive, I was rereading today, right? And there was a concern in there that that directive was going to have a negative impact on readiness within the Army. And so the study proves like it's in fact the opposite, because you're retaining soldiers, you're keeping families together, you're creating quality of life for parenthood and not just the motherhood. So it's all inclusive. So I think that's how we will be able to measure this, just by statistics. statistics of people, how many people are we retaining in the Army? And then when they do those quality of life surveys, I think having a lactation, being able to be stabilized on an installation for 12 months, if I decide to go through fertility and not have to start it, pick it up, stop it, go someplace else and start all over again. So I think that's how we will measure success in the future.
But if I could jump in, I wanted to bring up 2 points for the audience. So the fact that General Donahue said this is a living product, it is a living product. And I truly believe it'll become a living product that's for military and civilian, because our overall goal is to make sure that our government environment for men and women, but government environment that provides an inclusive environment for everyone to flourish and thrive in. So that will help us with this program and this playbook continuing to grow. We're all committed to helping you, ma'am. So we're going to all stay engaged. And then the other thing about it is the recruitment effort. So the FMMP has already worked with USAREC, U.S. Army Recruiting Command, and Cadet Command. Well, this would be yet another opportunity to add this into those 2 commands to say, well, the FMMP, we've already been told some, civilian parents don't want to send their daughters into the military because they're afraid of what's going to happen and that they won't have anyone to turn to. Well, they know that there's an FMMP, a platform that they can come to. Well, understanding that there's a playbook that people can go to before they even come in, because we have cadets that are part of the program. We have civilians that they can just go to online. And I'm so glad you said not CAC enable. You'll just be able to go on to it. That will allow people to go in and research and learn themselves. And then that way that takes away some of the fear that they're going to have when they're trying to come into the military. So we'll be working together because our goal is to help push it out there to everybody, as many as we can. So just wanted to throw that in there to let you know the efforts are going to be working diligently with the WIT TRADOC and the WIT Army to get this out there to everyone. And I know I saw some hands raised, so I'll turn it back over to you, CJ.
Hey, real quick, Dia, though. So Cheryl,
Yes.
do you want to talk, I mean, you talk about the whole, and I know Taylor talked about the coaching, mentoring, building teams and, piece for the civilian side, but the entire nutrition chapter is also, I mean, it is not like, hey, if you're in the military, this is what you must do. I know, Cheryl, if you want to talk to that really quick, I mean, it's agnostic, right? I mean, it can be used for anybody.
Oh, yes, ma'am, you're correct, because nutrition, it applies to everybody, right? It's that whole prevention aspect is keeping our civilian coming healthy to the workforce as well. So it was definitely geared towards like the general key nutrition messages, and we put a lot of tactics and a lot of links to existing resources. So this is a platform, the DoD has some great stuff. I think it's still just, it falls on deaf ears without showing it, but I think as mentioned, those LPDs will be key, and there's linked to videos, but no, it's yeah, it hits all audiences, but just again gives that kind of extra emphasis to females, because that is probably a big shortcoming that we have in the military, is not understanding some of the big differences. But really, there's more similarities than not. Soldiers a soldier, but same thing civilians, because they're active. I think it can apply to all, ma'am.
Yeah, no, thanks. By the way, and one of the, again, I can't talk enough about Kelly Schweitzer. She is, by the way, home with a new baby girl as of only a couple of weeks ago. And so she herself learned a ton from putting this all together. And so, so from a civilian perspective, it absolutely applies. There's huge chunks of this that could be, incorporated into civilian education as well.
Well, CJ, before you jump in, I'm going to pull someone out. I know she's not expecting me to ask her this, but I would love to get, and I know General Gainey thinks it's her, but I'm going to come to you later on, ma'am. I always do. But I'm going to ask Ms. Wicker. Ma'am, you are our most senior female in the building at AMC headquarters, our most senior person in AMC. And I know you and I have talked about working to start an AMC FMMP chapter. But I would love to know, and I would love for them to hear some of your thoughts on where you would think the civilian community would be able to come in, and where you think the military can thrive on this as well. So ma'am, would you mind doing us the honor and giving us some of your thoughts?
Absolutely. I was gonna raise my hand later on, but the conversation was so good. So Dia, thanks. And I do. And so here's what I would tell you. I was listening to Michelle talk, and I am a supervisor right now, Dia, as you know, of a military. And so that playbook, we got to figure out, how do you get that playbook to someone like me? So we're thinking about, the military supervisors that need it for the people that, they're supporting and managing. But there are so many civilian supervisors that have no idea the rules and regulations of managing a military person. And so I think we need to look at it from that perspective. That's number one. Okay. And so I'd love to see it. I'd love to help look at it. And for Major Kwashi, who's on here, who works for me, I need to learn more. I need to know better and be better. And she's certainly helped me grow. But I would say, number one, look at that. Number two, what else Michelle talked about is we've got to get to know our people, whether you're a civilian, whether you're a military. You know, I have a phrase that says, ask someone how they're doing, but stop and hear the answer. And we don't do that enough. We say, how you doing as we pass down the hall. But I challenge everybody on here to stop and hear the answer. And we'll get to some, that will help you get to some of the things that Michelle has talked about. The other thing, and you know, I know Kadine's on here, don't be afraid to tell your civilian boss or your military boss, I do have a family. This is my family, and these are the things I need. I want to share a story with you guys. So I got my very first MILDEP, and I introduced myself, and he came in, and I said, well, tell me about yourself. And he said, well, I have a son. He plays soccer, and we lived in Michigan at the time. And I said, oh, good. Soccer's on Monday and Wednesday at you know, in Michigan. And he said, well, ma'am, I've never been to one of his games. And I said, whoa, 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 stop right there. I said, soldier, your duty station for September and October at 4 p.m. on Monday and Wednesday is going to be your son's soccer game. And he felt, he couldn't believe it, that, you know, I would put this above anything else. I said, look, I said, you're new here. You've got, your family has got to get acclimated. But I was shocked to find out that I had and he was a colonel, a full colonel, who had never seen his son play soccer. There's a problem with that. And part of it was, as we talked, he didn't share his story with, you know, his leaders too. And so every time a colonel came in after that, you know, the message traveled. No, ma'am, we already know. He, you know, the next guy that came in, he said, my son's in band and my daughter does this, and I understand where I'm supposed to be. And so we have to help that, and we have to live it and make sure that our soldiers and our civilians understand that. It can't just be hollow words. But I challenge the people, you got to tell your story to your leadership too. Number one, they want to know. And number two, they want to make sure that you do have some work-life balance and things like that. So much of what Michelle said resonated, but I think the biggest thing that resonated is get the civilian supervisors who manage military a copy of that book. I'm happy to spread it through AMC because a lot of my SCSs manage military and don't know what they should know. So I hope that is helpful, and thank you so much for the opportunity to speak.
Ma'am, we're going to take you up on that.
Michelle, you know, help me drive it wherever I can.
I will. We'll send you an advanced copy of it so you can check it out. So
And I'll just walk next door and make sure she has it up on the computer.
Thanks.
Well,
Tia.
and then I'm going to hold Major Kwashi to, you know, to make sure that her and I have those, you know, supervisor, military leader conversations. It will help me be better too. So I appreciate the opportunity to be on here. And Michelle, I look forward to you holding me to it.
Ma'am, thank you. We appreciate. And by the way, thanks, Dia, for pulling this wicker in. By the way, I always used to love, especially at over at ALU, pulling up. If any of you haven't seen it, let me know. I'll send it to you. But the Chief of Staff of the Army's leave matrix, but on the leave matrix, ma'am, to your point, it has games on there, and it tells leaders it is the place of duty for your soldiers when they're in a garrison environment to be at those games, to be at those recitals. I mean, this is where shocking. It says, hey, you should be there for the birth of your child as opposed to going to the National Training Center. You should be back, right? I should send you back for the birth of your child when you're at war, right? People are like, oh my God, really? Like I've missed all those things. This is the shock to me. And even when I was with CCC classes, they were like, man, we think you're on some foreign planet out there. No, I'm just following the Chief of Staff of the Army's guidance and directive. You all need to get with it. And so, so we'll make sure you all see that if you don't have that out there. But I always love to that's my first. Have you seen the Chief of Staff of the Army's leave matrix? And the more we can spread that, I mean, that's his whole point about people first. And it's not about people first. I send everybody home and they don't work. That's not his message, right? His message is your people will absolutely get the mission done if you put those little marbles in the trust jar. So I'll get off my soapbox about Chief Staff of the Army Sleep Matrix, although I'm sure he'd be excited to know that I was talking about
Well,
it.
I put it out there too, ma'am. I'll just let you know that is an awesome one. And he did
It
tell
is.
that story. So, but
It
also
is.
CJ, I know we're taking, go ahead, CJ. She's keeping me on track.
No issues, ma'am. I know Colonel Lee had a question. I want to make sure we acknowledge that question, ma'am.
Mari?
Ma'am, I actually had a comment. I'm one of those that was privileged also to see the playbook. And I have to say that, yes, it's extremely educational and empowering. So it sounds like you hit all the marks and the benchmarks that needed to be addressed. And I have to tell you that what I hear from the field, from a lot of leaders, from a lot of female and junior females, it's amazing to see the empowerment of our female leaders, because that is really percolating and is really definitely being spread to the lower ranks. So when now you have C, that E4, that when I was in the AIT class the other day, she said, I know I could do it because I see you guys doing it. And it's amazing, and that is something that is part of it, because if we understand that somebody traveled the road before us, it could be travel. So, and I really thank you, ladies, on behalf of all of us, for staying and educating our leaders and ensuring that in the future we have an empowered force, right? Because that's what we want. We want empowered leaders that are able to make decisive actions and create inclusivity in our formations.
Thank you so much, Mari. And I'm gonna, CJ, I'm gonna take it over real fast and turn it over to my lookalike, my Xerox copy, my twin sister, Lieutenant Colonel Clydelia Pritchard Allen, our Pentagon Executive Director for the whole FMMP program. So go ahead, Delia.
Hey, listen, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. This has been truly an amazing evening. I will tell you this, I just wanted to throw something out there to General Donahue. I'm not sure if you're aware, we have a recruiting and retention task force weekly sync at the Pentagon. I would highly recommend / encourage that this book, this playbook, be introduced there, because that's one of the things they're looking to try to find what ways we can talk about retaining. How do we, what products we have available. And so that's something, as we were talking tonight, the recruiting mission right now, as you all know, very challenging right now. Something like this would be probably at the top of their list to introduce to the civilian community for those parents.
Delia, let me just jump in real fast. Just so you know, General Gervais is all up in.
Okay, okay, good,
So
good.
we're there. I sit in those meetings with them.
Okay,
and so
good.
When this does get approved, and General Donahue said it perfectly, she has to get it approved through General Gervais, and then the entire piece has to be officially launched. Then that will be launched as a part of the recruiting effort, but it has to go through its gauntlet of.
Absolutely. And that's what mine was.
Yeah,
mine just a general
was already
comment.
tracking that, but no, great,
Gotcha.
great thought. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Perfect. Yeah, just a general comment to make sure that that's involved in the team. We are definitely looking forward to seeing that happen. A part of, as Major Lee mentioned, or Colonel Lee mentioned, we were part of putting the portion for the FMMP part in there. And I tell you, it was just encouraging to see, as some of the stories have been mentioned. I remember some of the times where we had soldiers come in and say, I don't know what to do. I don't even know where to begin looking for the products to at least understand what the process and the programs are and the policies. So I'm just excited about it. I just wanted to jump in there and share that with you, and then to thank you all for just giving this, because this, even for those of us who've been in for a minute, it's really still giving us some new information to share with our formation. So thanks for that.
All right, thank you. CJ, we've got about 15 more minutes. So I'm gonna take it back, and I always open it up to, here again, my military mom. So hopefully she's already ready for me to turn it over to her and just get her thoughts. General Gainey, do you have any thoughts that you would like to add to the team?
Certainly, Clydelia. I put in the chat a couple of ideas about how to get the word out, how to make it come alive, because if you don't, it just becomes another book on the shelf. And we already have that. So leaders are going to have to figure out how to make that come alive. We can help our leaders, if you're not in a leadership position, by recommending to leadership that they make it part of an OPD or an NCOPD, and then assigning 10 different people one question. And then they have to brief back to the audience that question. if for nothing else, they'll learn 10 different topics and become aware that there's a tool out there that they can use. And I can't stomp enough on the issue of you've got to get to know your people. And one of my techniques was I used to invite people to a brown bag lunch, and it was a one-on-one. I sometimes did some as groups, but sometimes I did them as just a one-on-one. I'd say, hey, join me tomorrow just for a brown bag lunch. We'll just sit here in the open area and we'll just chat. And it was amazing what I would learn. And I would start out just asking them, what are their goals? What do they want? What's the family, doing? Where are they going to go on vacation? Just talking about non-work stuff, getting to know them. Later, as they gain confidence in you, they'll start sharing their challenges. That's all. Thanks.
Ma'am, as always, you provide great mentorship and great advice. So that is absolutely the key point for all of us. And just so you all know, I always try to drive home, leaders have to get involved. We can't make programs successful. We can't make a playbook successful if we don't put the information out. FMMP wouldn't be successful if you didn't go out there and tell people about it and have them come in. We wouldn't have the chapters that we have established if we didn't get out there and talk to them and have people and try to see the vision. And so the Women's Initiative Team, TRADOC, the Women's Initiative Team, Army, the playbook, we're trying to put it out there, the FMMP, we're trying to put things out there for the leaders to take advantage of and use. It's free of charge. If they're not doing it, then we can't get the next generation to know what's happening, what's out there. And so I would challenge each of you, for the ones that joined us tonight, go out to 10 people and say, hey, did you hear about the program? Did you join it? Listen in. Every month we do this. And when the Women's Initiative Team comes out, we're going to make sure we put it out there for everyone. Now, everybody knows there's that social media cloud right now of senior leaders doing too much on social media or doing things that we could get social media trolls coming at us because they just don't want us to be successful. Let's just say any senior leader to try to do a good thing. But we have to find ways around that because our messages still have to get to the masses. And how do we do that? I believe this playbook, I'm a firm believer in it, and I'm going to promote it as if it was I'm selling a product on the side of the road. The bottom line is they put so much energy and effort into it. And General Donahue and team, you all have been, so accommodating for us to provide our feedback to you. And so knowing that we can provide feedback on a regular basis, I think it's just going to take it to the next level. And like Ms. Wicker said, asking and getting them involved, getting our civilian family members, and I call everyone my family. So getting our civilian family members involved is really going to take it to the next level because we do have to worry about the environment, not just military green suiters, it's the environment, which is our urban camouflage military civilians. That's all they are. They're wearing urban camouflage, which is civilian clothes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open it up for final comments, but before we do the final comments, is there anyone else that would like to ask any questions? I see one hand raised. I think it's I see another hand raised. Mari, is that you or is that Claudia?
Ma'am, that is me. I wanted to remind you, monkey survey coming to a theater near you. So we are going to be sending out the monkey surveys. Like, please propose your subjects, whatever point of discussion you want us to bring to the FMMP. And we will integrate across the FMMP chapters and make sure that we address all the topics that we are that are of interest to the audience.
Great. Thank you so much for reminding us of that. So yes, we're going to send out an email and it's going to have a survey link so that we can get you and your teammates, your subordinates, your seniors, your leaders. We do have cadets involved, like I said, we have civilians, and we want to get your feedback so we can make this program better, as well as the playbook, as well as the Women's Initiative Team when it comes out. So thanks again, Mari. So now I'd like to, are there any other questions? Does anyone, would they like to just come on the line and give a comment or a question? It's open. This is free time. We're going to give it about a minute. If I see no hands or no one jumps in, I see a new message down here. Who would that message be from? Okay, and so for anyone that still is asking that question, the playbook will come out at a later time. I see it in the chat room. Their question was, when is it going to get pushed out? It is still in its final we'll say it this way, it's in review phase with the Army senior leadership. And so until it is approved, they cannot launch it. And so just know it's there. So just like we do with our tickets, when we know there's a hot concert about to happen, be ready. The book is going to come out, and then we'll let you know. We'll keep you informed on the FMMP sessions and our emails. And so thanks for the question in the chat room. And I don't think I see any other questions on here. Oh, I do see one that says, when do we think that we will achieve complete female integration into the Army? Is it 5 years or is it 50 years down the road? So that's a great question that can't be answered. I will just say that because how do you judge complete integration? The bottom line is we have to feel, we have to know that we have the opportunities to join. And I think that's the key. General Donahue, I'll let you address that as well. And Sergeant Major, you as well. But from my perspective, we have to just let them know they have the ability to come in and serve valiantly in an inclusive and safe environment. What does that mean? That doesn't necessarily mean women all want to come into the military. Some, it's just not for them. We've chosen the call of duty because this is something, for whatever reason we came in, we chose it and fell in love with it and are still here. So, but the bottom line is to make sure everyone understands that they have the opportunities to come and do great things. Ma'am, General Donahue, would you like to add any thoughts?
So I just want to say, every day we take one step closer, right? And so today, actually, for those that are out there, the first female Army G4 was selected in COIC, right? So the first Sergeant Major, I'll caveat that, the first female Sergeant Major was selected for that position. And so kudos to Sergeant Major Caceres, a former CASCOM senior leader there, who was also selected for that position. So that was just announced today. And I just want to say kudos to her. She's awesome. And she's going to do just an incredible thing, when she transitions out of JMC up to the Army G4 here in a couple months with Sergeant Major Sellers, then moves on down to AMC. So from a sustainer perspective, huge for our NCO community out there. So again, it's going to take time, but every day, right, we continue to take on more roles and responsibilities. And women are going to continue to do awesome things in our Army.
Ma'am, yes, ma'am, you stole my thunder.
I'm sorry. Sorry, I had to do it.
Saw that. So I'm gonna shout out to her on this platform. Congratulations, Sergeant Major Caceres. But I will just tell you that the Army, when we integrated women into the maneuver units, that was a big thing for the Army. So we're continuing to get the integration piece right. I think the question that we should be asking each other is not, is the Army, when will the Army get it right? It's when will we get it right? Because us at the lowest level have to enforce like the integration piece and the equity and the inclusion and the diversity in our formations. And that is where we have to invest a lot of our energy to make sure leaders are enforcing standards. But the Army overall is opening up many avenues for women to do whatever they aspire to do in the Army, to be the first at different things and to have the opportunity to do whatever they want to do and create their own career paths in the Army. So
awesome. Thank you so much, Sergeant Major. Captain Gugel, final thoughts?
They both, knocked it out of the park. So not much to add to that other than, I think everybody has valuable input that they can add to this discussion, with it being a living document. I feel like definitely, there's a lot of leaders out there that are really passionate about this subject. And there's great media that can be created. Something I learned all about in this project here, but there's a lot of really great things that in messages that people haven't heard that would really help, positively impact their formation. So I would just kind of say, anybody who has passion about this subject, you don't have to wait for the leader's playbook to come out to start having these conversations in your formation. It's something that can kind of be something that you continuously build on. So.
Wow. Thank you so much. And our additional guest, our bonus guest, Cheryl. Major Bolita. Bolito.
Oh, thank you, ma'am. No, I mean, everyone kind of really hit it. I mean, I guess we have a unique perspective just down in medical land, right? Just based on our uh, demographics and what we deal with. But yeah, I teach graduate students, right? And so we have a lot of articles we've read on flipping the viewpoint on what if we were integrated. There's a great one on what if we were integrating men into like a female army, right? So I think part of it starts and we've made so much progress, but what about those biases and perspectives we already have? Let's stop talking about when, let's focus on we're a day closer and where we're at. And it's just where it's going to happen before we realize it, and success will pass us and it'll just be the norm, right? So to me, it's reframing, not like the win. It's I'm going to keep doing what I need to do with the vision we're already there, right? So, but yeah, thank you.
You're so welcome. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. With 4 minutes left, I just want to thank each of you. Please, here again, pass the word, spread it, and bring in those who don't know about this platform. There are a number of areas and programs that are out there, but most of the time people don't know about them. So if they don't know about them, they don't go to them. And I was telling my sister tonight, you know, yeah, the biblical saying, where there's two gathered, there's something, we can have a forum. And so the bottom line becomes we're here to make life better for all of us in military and in uniform and out of uniform, because we're all together in our offices and in an environment. It's the bottom line is making it better. And when you feel like a family, family takes care of family. And so that's what we're doing. And I believe you all are all my family. And Ms. Wicker knows she's going to get a big old hug tomorrow morning when I go in there and attack her and Quash, you just thanking them for just being a part of this. And we will be doing this in AMC. Just saying, it's going to happen. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your evening. Have a great evening. Have a blessed rest of the week. We will see. You'll see the emails. When you get them, please pass them on. Please share this thought, the vision with as many people as possible. And you will see this playbook get published, launched, and we will be the first ones to put it out there as loud as we can. So thank you again, ladies and gentlemen. Have a wonderful and blessed evening. Take care.